Hello and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton. And today, as you can tell, we're in an unusual setting. We had just a few minutes to grab with a very well-known speaker. Peter Kageyama is here. He is speaking for the Hampton 2040 Community Plan. He's the author of For the Love of Cities, a great TED Talk speaker, and he's come to Hampton to help us talk about why we should love Hampton, how we should love Hampton, and maybe some other things. We'll find out. Welcome, Peter. It's great to meet you in person.
Thank you, Robin.
I've watched some of your talks,
okay.
But for people who haven't, why should we love our city? Like, I love my spouse, I love my kids, I don't know about my city.
Well, see, the thing is you're actually in a relationship with your city. But most of us don't think about that in terms of a relationship. You know, you mentioned your spouse and your kids. We have these highly examined personal and professional relationships. We spend lots of time thinking about those. But you are in an ongoing day-to-day relationship with your city. And the thing that I tell folks is unexamined relationships, they can go stale, they can go bad. So I think people need to recognize that, hey, you're in this relationship. And you know, as your city occurs there, it impacts you on a very fundamental level. And in fact, it impacts those other relationships that you have with those people that we think are also important. So yeah, I think it's important that we have a better relationship with our cities, our places.
That's really interesting. And of course, I monitor the city's social media, and that tends to be a place where maybe the negativity pops out.
Right.
And I would say there's some staleness, some tension, and there's some sniping going on about some of our residents.
Well, of course, you know, every place has that sort of that characteristic, but that is certainly not the majority of citizens. You know, and people don't necessarily get online to tell you you've done something good or nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they get online to complain about something. So you know, you take that with a grain of salt. Of course, you know that is your job. You look at that because in some ways that is helping to take the temperature of that relationship, maybe amongst the more volatile or the folks who are definitely fired up about something. But sometimes you can get out ahead of an issue simply by monitoring that. So certainly there is value in that. But to say that social media is a strong indicator per se of the love affair that people have with their places is really not the case, because most of us are silently, hopefully still enjoying the relationship that we have with our place.
Well, how do cities, and you've spoken in how many places? Hundreds of places. Yeah. How do cities foster that relationship? What are some ways you can improve it?
Well, the interesting thing is that cities are all about, spending public dollars. And when you spend public dollars, you expect a certain result. Now, what I talk about, this is a bit of a leap of faith for some cities, because, they say, well, if we spend this much money, I want to know how much love I'm going to get out on the other end. And that's a really hard question.
There's a balance sheet on the budget.
Exactly. And the thing is that there is not a formula per se for love. I say this is more like alchemy, in the sense that it's, yes, there's some chemistry involved, there's some elements involved, there's a bit of legerdemain, and you hope something interesting happens at the other end. Now that is a bit of a challenge for cities, because again, they are in the business of delivering X, Y, or Z.
Because I know how much I spend on trash pickup, what I'm going to get.
Exactly. Exactly. But I think if we can agree in principle that emotions matter, that certainly love matters, and I think we all can broadly agree, on that. Now we might disagree to what degree and how important we place that, but I think all of us would probably agree. It's like, okay, that's kind of important. And then so accepting that, then cities and places have to have that next follow-up question is, okay, how do we do that? And you're right, it is a bit of a different sort of beast for cities, because it is about creating a set of conditions where something interesting might happen, as opposed to knowing per se that something is going to happen. And when I talk about this stuff, there's a couple places I like to tell cities to start. First of all, find those folks who are already out there doing really interesting things for your city. Not necessarily official folks, but the entrepreneurs, the artists, I call them the co-creators. The folks who are sort of co-creating the city along with the official folks. It's kind of your job to tell the story that is the city. But then there's these other people out there, not their job, but they do an amazing, things for the city. Start with them. How do you amplify what they're already doing?
Yeah, the guy who puts pink flamingos in the trees on the first day of spring.
That's a guy who loves his city.
Yes, it is.
And that's a guy who's having fun.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I think cities have trouble expressing their fun side. like that, because somebody's going
Yeah,
to say,
because when he spray painted them on the streets, that caused a little issue.
well, okay, but he
we
found
got
out
over
where.
it. We figured it
exactly.
all out.
But see, the thing is like as much as the city might want to say, yeah, that'd be kind of fun. Let's put some, flamingos in the trees. Somebody's going to say, is that really the best use of our, tax
we
dollars?
didn't do it.
Oh, I
That's the
know
good
that.
thing.
But that's
Yeah.
the thing
Yeah,
is
it
that
is,
as
right.
human beings, we would go, that's kind of cool.
We have to be serious.
We have to be serious. Well, actually, that's the thing I tell cities is you really don't. I mean, yes, this is serious work, but it is not all serious work. And find your fun is a really great way to help people find that emotional connection with their place. Because if you can create something that is fun, that makes people smile and go, that's so cool. I'm glad I live in Hampton. We do this, or we have, places where, we have pink flamingos and trees there. Citizens don't always differentiate who put the flamingo in the tree.
Right, yeah.
They just see something that's cool and interesting and makes them smile and makes them feel better about their place. That sort of all wraps up nicely.
Well, and honestly, sometimes it's better when the city doesn't do it, because you're right, we don't always have the sense of humor.
Right. Right. So how do you create this sort of this culture where maybe more of that is likely to happen? So that's what I say to cities, is it's about creating that sort of set of conditions. You work with those co-creators, and then you find maybe little interventions that you can do. That's like, all right, we're already putting in a sidewalk here. It's like, could we do something that makes it a little bit more interesting than just your standard issue sidewalk? Yeah, I think you can.
Okay, those sound like some good ideas. I think, one of the hard things is, though, for me, is when somebody says, now go have fun. That doesn't always work, because it has to well up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, let's not get prescriptive about fun or about love. I can't tell you how to love someone or something. I can't tell you how to have fun, but I can give you the space to do that. And I can sort of create the sort of sense of, hey, it's okay if I go and explore this. I go and try something, new, or I try some new foods, or I go to a different part of town there. And all of a sudden now people go, hey, that was kind of cool. Let's go do something else.
My sense sometimes of a lot of residents' relationship with Hampton is more that it's a younger sibling, and they love to pick on it, they love to make fun of it, they love to do that. But if somebody from the outside comes in,
of course.
oh no, don't you dare.
Oh yeah. No, in fact, citizens are oftentimes, sometimes the people who love a place the most, they can also be very critical, of a place. And in fact, I find that the people who've lived in a place for a long time probably have developed certainly the most scar tissue over time. Maybe they've been disappointed by this particular place there, so they build up, some calluses, as it were. But at heart, they do very much love their city. What I also find is that oftentimes newcomers love places with this sort of openness and this enthusiasm, because it's new and it's exciting, and they haven't built up all of that detritus over time. So it's nice to have that sort of mix of the two, where you have this, this foundational sort of group, but then you also have this new, this energy that comes in when new people come and they discover your city.
Yeah, I see that on the citizen satisfaction surveys a lot. People who've just gotten here are much more satisfied. But also they've had experiences elsewhere, and I think people here have lived through a recession. Things have changed, and they don't always like change, and that's hard.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that go into
What's
that.
the old adage about change? The only people who like change are babies and change management consultants, right? So yeah, change is hard. But how we allow for change to happen, that is on the city and on leadership. Do we ease people into it? Instead of
and did they involve themselves?
Did they involve
there's
themselves?
Some personal responsibility here. And
of course, but one of the things that I tell cities all the time is one of the ways that they can help citizens understand and embrace change is to do things on a smaller, temporary basis. If we want to get to this particular point, instead of just announcing the project and we're going to build this, we're going to go out to here. It's like, well, what if we did something right here that's smaller, that's temporary, that allows people to go and experience something new and different and go, oh, this is kind of cool. I like this. Yeah, I'd be down for doing something bigger and more permanent there. So temporary can be one of those ways that cities can help ease people into the bigger, the larger idea that they're trying to get to.
Okay. Well, you've been in town for a few hours now.
A few hours, yes.
Not very long.
Yes.
But do you have any first impressions of Hampton that you could share with us?
Yeah, water everywhere,
Yes.
certainly there. I live in St. Petersburg, Florida, Tampa Bay, so we see that.
You're
And the water is a powerful, just it's symbolic. It's a powerful metaphor, and just knowing it's there is a comfort, And we sometimes take it for granted, and we have a bridge culture there as well. That bridges, act like not as barriers as opposed to connectors. Like, oh, I'm not going over there. I got to go through the bridge, and what a pain. But at heart, we know that that there is good stuff, certainly there. So the water, I think, is a recurring theme, and this sort of the historic nature of how old this city is. I come from Florida, and it's like, look at that old building. It's 50 years old. It's like, yeah, okay, it's all sort of relative. You guys are going to be celebrating as a state 400 years next year, which is kind of like, wow, that's kind of amazing.
408.
Yes, you are 408 continuous. Yeah,
we're very proud of that. But it doesn't look it, and that's one of the weird things is you walk around and you don't have that sense because we've been burned down in I don't know 2 or 3 wars now, and a couple other times, and it doesn't have that. Like you walk around New Orleans, you think this is an old city. Well, it's older. But it doesn't show.
Well, there is the physical manifestation of how old it is, but in the stories that I've been hearing and the sort of the folklore that folks are telling me there that is sort of in your DNA. So yeah, it feels older.
Yeah, we do have old DNA.
Yeah, I would say that's probably very true. And I think the fact that you have this interesting mix of the military folks who come in and out, on typical 3-year rotations, there. So there is that sort of high turnover, amongst that. So that that is it's both a blessing. It's like, hey, we got lots of people coming through here, lots of new ideas, but maybe they don't plant roots and stay the way you would hope to. There, but no. So far, it's been a lovely weather, so far, and like I said, this little the downtown core here, very interesting. Phoebus is is a real gem.
Yes,
there as well. There, and I saw some really cool stuff like the Vanguard. What a great story that is. And I think it's an even greater story because it's a building that apparently it's sat empty for 10+ years.
Yeah, City Council held on to it. Didn't get the right project,
but then
held on, and that's hard because you have public pressure. And
let's turn it into a warehouse. Like, no, we could do better than that. And clearly you did.
Yeah.
I don't even drink, but I love sort of beer culture because it's not about the beer. It's about bringing people together.
Live
creating
music
a sense of
every
community.
night.
Yeah,
that
what a great
stage,
facility.
Otis Redding played on that stage.
Really?
It's great.
Yeah.
USO shows.
Yeah.
It brings that back around.
That is what I call a love note. So in my work, I talk about these relatively small things in places that actually have these larger impacts on the place. And the Vanguard is a love note because it's not just a building. It's that it is that legacy. It is fixing something that was broken in your city for many, many years and bringing it back to a whole new and a whole other level.
So doing more of those.
Doing more of those, sure. And even smaller things. We saw some stuff, downtown here where you have these storm drains, and they painted these little murals on the storm drains just to get you, to think about it so you don't throw your trash down there. Now, storm drains are a really boring problem, but that is a really creative solution to something like that. That doesn't take, a whole lot of money, but does take, thinking about the problem in a different way.
It was volunteers, it was getting people involved. And even if, I'm not one who litters, but I still walk past there and you think wildlife, and you think, the waters flow into the bay, and it's just pretty.
It's just pretty.
It adds color.
And you look at it, you might smile a little bit, and that's perfectly fine. You walk past that, you go, that's better than an average storm drain, and yes, it is. And that that is part of that relationship that we have with our place.
Yeah, we have a lot of murals going up now.
Yes, there's one right across from the hotel. The woman's been painting the last couple of days. I was out there taking pictures, of that, and walking around downtown. It's like, that's really, that's cool. I love, a mural. It's so much better than, just a blank wall. It tells a story, and again, it manifestly feels different.
So how does Love Your City tie into what some people think might be boring process of city planning and community plan and writing things down into a little book form about what we're going to be when we grow up?
So we tend to think about our cities as sort of these engineering marvels, and they really are. If you think about it, the city is probably the most complex thing that we've ever sort of built, as human beings. I mean, the machinations that go on to make, a city of 137,000 work would boggle the mind if folks actually, understood sort of, how much stuff actually goes into that. So my challenge for cities is not only to look at themselves as this wonderful mechanism, which they are, but also to think of themselves as sort of this organic, this sort of living and breathing, entity, as it were. Because the city is just, buildings and infrastructure, but the city, we are the city as well. So how we feel about that place is equally important as to having really good infrastructure, that goes with it. So, it's that hardware, software kind of thing that really makes a city go. So, again, planners and city officials, they're very good at the hardware and the infrastructure because it seems more tangible. It seems, I know how to plan for that bridge or that road. I don't necessarily know how to plan for people to be happy in a place, or to feel secure in a place, or to feel like they want to raise their family in a place, or start a business in a place. That requires a different lens. But it's not that they don't, I don't find that city leadership rejects that idea. They just don't quite know how to do it. They know they want to get there, and then they realize, yeah, we should be paying attention to this other stuff because it doesn't cost a whole lot of money to do these little things that make us feel like we are, part of the community. That it's not just this machine that we sort of, walk around in. That no, this is our place, and that feels, again, manifestly different when it's done well.
How does that enthusiasm continue? Because when I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm like, yeah, and I think people out there would be too. But then you're like,
The day-to-day, of course, and that happens. There's the tyranny of the immediate. Folks will come hear me speak and they go, that's so cool, and then they'll go back to the office the next day and, there's this stack of stuff that has to get done, and I totally understand that. But, what I'm trying to do is get people to find those little moments in having to go through that workload, that stack of reports or all those projects. I ask people this simple question. I ask, where's the fun? Because if you can just ask that question in the context of all of those other things that you're supposed to be doing, now maybe not every one of them, but asking that question, you open up the lens and you look at the problem in a different way. And you open up the possibility of something beyond a merely technically sufficient solution, right? So a little tip like that can actually change the way we feel about the work that sometimes is drudgery. I totally get that there, but helping to renew that. And if we find a little bit of fun in that stuff that was before, it was like, I got to do this. And if we find something that's like, if it makes you smile, probably makes somebody else smile there. And maybe what happens is we create this emotional sort of impact. And emotions are contagious. When you feel, you smile, I smile. You cry, I feel bad. So more people starting to say they love, Hampton, to say they love downtown, say they love Phoebus, that's contagious. And when more people start doing that, then maybe they want to do something themselves to help carry that sort of emotion forward.
And not just that they want to, but they also feel like they can.
They can.
I think that,
yes,
that people have ideas and they have no idea what to do with those ideas or where to go. Or
well, most people think city building is somebody else's job. They think it's your job, and and the mayors and the city managers, because they think it's all big stuff. It's roads and bridges and schools, and they look at that and they go, I can't do any of that.
That's over my head, right?
But the thing is that city building, placemaking, great placemaking is little stuff. It's a community garden. It's a little dog park. It's a backyard festival that involves you, me, and our neighbor that we do for no other reason. It amuses us. And that is a perfectly valid expression of placemaking, and that has value. It is not on the same scale, but it does matter. In this. Ideally, you want good top-down stuff where the city's leading on the bigger stuff, and you want interesting bottom-up stuff happening from citizens and entrepreneurs and folks who are doing stuff sort of at this level. It meets in the middle. That's when things get really interesting.
And that is kind of, I think, I'm not a planner, but what the community plan is all about.
Mm-hmm.
It is how do you use your city? What do you want to see? What matters to you? Mm-hmm. And then the staff kind of pieces things together, and then we talk about it and work through some of those things with the hardware and hopefully the software.
Well, one of the reasons I think they brought me in is because I help them ask these different questions, that I help bring the scale of what folks are typically going to think about. If we brought folks together and asked them, hey, 2040, what should Hampton be like? What should we do? They'll give us lots of interesting and good ideas, most of which are going to be really big and really expensive, right?
Yes.
So I flip that lens completely around. I ask, okay, what could we do tomorrow that would make Hampton a better, more interesting, more livable place? It doesn't cost a whole lot of money. It doesn't require the city that we do, and maybe we don't even get permission for it. So that kind of, radically flips, the script on that, because again, most people think that it's somebody else's job. And I try to encourage to say, no, we're in this together. There's not a parity of power, but there has to be a parity of caring. We both have to give a damn about this place in order for it to really work.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, is there anything else you want to add before we close that I've not asked you about?
It's been good.
Okay. Thank you so much
You're
for
very
stopping by. I know you have a very busy schedule.
My pleasure.
And thank you for watching Round Robin. This has been a really special interview, and I hope you will stay involved with the community plan. The website is hampton.gov/Hampton 2040.